Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar presentation, Moving from Tactical to Strategic Procurement, how to leverage procurement automation and advanced analytics to optimize your spend management process. Now before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. The Q&A chat window is where you can type in any questions that you have during the presentation, and that goes for both our live and our on-demand viewers. If we don't get to your questions right away, we'll get to them after the presentation via email shortly. You can check out the resource widget for URL links to some additional research resources, as well as a PDF version of the slide deck today. And if you have any technical difficulties, try refreshing the browser or clicking on the Help widget, where you'll find answers to some of the more common questions. For those of you who are interested in receiving CPE credit for your attendance today, you have to watch at least 50 minutes of the webinar and answer both of the poll questions. And when those requirements are met, you're going to see a little yellow certificate icon in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and you'll be able to download and print your certificate there. If something comes up and you have to jump off the webinar early or you miss the poll questions, you can always come back later and watch on demand. The full webinar with polls and everything is available in about an hour after the live event is over. You can always email us at cpe@paystreamadvisors.com if you have any CPE-related questions. All right, so let's take a look at today's agenda. Now, the first part of today's presentation will be covering tactical versus strategic procurement, and that's going to be an overview of PayStream's most recent data on this topic. Then we're going to jump into the idea of transforming procurement from tactical to strategic using automation software. And we're going to rely on our subject matter expert from the software industry to help us with that section. We'll have a few minutes at the end for questions, so feel free to submit those during the presentation if you have any. So let me quickly introduce today's presenters. On the PayStream side, I am Anna Barnett. I'm a research associate with PayStream, and I will be covering PayStream's research findings on this topic of strategic procurement. I have with me Foy Maynor, who is the Vice President of Sales at Paramount Workplace. He's going to share his expertise on the topic. How are you doing today, Foy?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Great. We're very delighted to have you today. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with PayStream, we are a team of experts in all things back office processes and software. And that includes whether we're talking about sourcing and supply chain or procurement, accounts payable, or payments and expense management. We use our expertise to help our subscribers and our clients in a few different ways. First way is through our free research reports and tools that are on our website, paystreamadvisors.com. That's where a lot of the data I'm going to discuss today comes from. These reports cover industry trends and adoption rates, as well as profile leading solutions for practitioners like yourselves to take a look at. Another way we help our clients is through thought leadership via speaking engagements. We do a free webinar like this one almost every week, and even if you can't come to a live event of the webinar, they're always available on demand on our website. The final way we help our clients is through our advisory services. We help companies plan for automation with current state analysis and needs assessments. We help them build an ROI case for automation, choose the right solution, and negotiate for the best deal. We also stick around for implementation and help things go smoothly from there too as well. And now I'll let Foy tell you a little bit about Paramount.
Paramount Workplace was founded in 1995, so for more than 23 years we've been doing spend management solutions. Spend management to us is requisition and procurement, which we're going to focus on today. And as a natural extension of spend management within organizations, we also do expense, AP automation, as well as project timesheet solutions. We are headquartered in metropolitan Detroit, and then we have offices around the U.S. and Canada. Our support, our QA, quality assurance, as well as our administrative functionalities are primarily located in our headquarters office, and then we also have sales as well as consulting support, again, around the U.S. as well as Canada. And what we offer is both mobile and web-based cloud solutions in order to make it easy, simple, effective, and efficient to be able to enter transactions, route those for approval before they're going to create a binding transaction within the financial or ERP system that a company will need to pay. Paramount Workplace has more than 131,000 users worldwide, and our solutions can be run standalone, or we have out-of-the-box real-time integration to many different financial and ERP systems. When we run standalone, we are the system of record for the procurement functionality, the vendors, the general ledger accounts, creation of the POs, and the additional information needed as a part of the overall purchasing process. When we're integrated to the different financial and back office systems, we do leverage the setups, the information that's already been defined within those systems with our integration. So you are validating vendors, validating general ledger accounts, comparing to budgets as you enter those transactions. Either way, you get a very strong, robust solution, and it's also allowing you to switch between solutions if needed. So if you change your back office or ERP system, you can continue to run the Paramount Workplace application and then simply move to that other solution along with it. We do offer different deployment options, software as a service, where we will host it via Azure. Our product can also be hosted by a third party. And we also offer on-premise solutions so that the application resides on your web server. So we're very flexible with those deployment solutions, and overall it's designed to be easy for employees to be able to enter the transactions, effective for management to make sure that the transactions are being approved if they move through the process, and then also powerful for accounting because of the integration or links as well as visibility that we're going to provide throughout the entire process. We see industry strength in about 14 different industries that we'll cover a little bit later on during the presentation, but just know that any organization that needs to be able to manage their spend, whether they're 3 users or more than 4,000 users, are able to make use of a spend management solution and then be able to move forward with automating their processes. And here's a graphical representation of some of those customers across the different industries that I mentioned before. These may be some more recognizable customers that you may see and be familiar with, and these do cover the different spend management solutions that we offer: requisition procurement, expense, AP automation, as well as the project timesheet. So this should give you a good idea of some of the types of customers that we work with. But again, as long as you need to be able to manage your spend, a procurement solution can certainly help you recognize those savings.
All right, thank you very much, Foy. So we're going to get started today by covering some of PayStream's most recent data around tactical procurement and strategic procurement processes. And we've taken this data from our survey that we run across several hundred different respondents across different organizational sizes and types and industry types. So let's jump in. Now I want to set the stage here by simplifying a little bit what we mean by tactical versus strategic procurement. PayStream identifies this somewhat on a scale. Tactical procurement, if you're the most tactical in your procurement management processes and that you're focusing on sort of tedious, manually driven, and not strategic tasks within your procurement management process, we see companies that are running on a fully manual process as fully tactical. Then you can have different levels of automation in your procurement department, but the most strategic of these is a cloud-based e-procurement tool. So in between those, we see it as sort of a scale if you're using an ERP-based tool or maybe a homegrown procurement automation system. A lot of companies are using a mix of these or dependent on sort of their outdated systems. As you can see from this graph in the slide, the majority of companies are using an ERP-based procurement tool. And this is common, especially in larger organizations that are highly dependent on legacy systems. And for them, expanding their software systems makes more sense if they rely on the ERP that they've trusted for decades. As you continue, you see a homegrown e-procurement tool more prevalent. This is especially true in the mid-market, as companies, once again, don't want to invest too heavily in re-architecting their technical infrastructure. They try to leverage the resources they have in-house to build out their IT systems. There's a great amount of companies who are completely manual, and this, again, is because procurement doesn't want to rock the boat too much by putting in systems. The most strategic way that you can manage your procurement department is through a cloud-based tool. And as you can see, almost 1/5 of companies are using a cloud-based tool, but PayStream sees this adoption rate growing over the years. Now, the figure in this slide shows the results of a survey question we asked among companies who are using manual processes or outdated technology like homegrown ERP-based systems. As you can see, under manual processes, procurement teams have poor control across departments and locations. They struggle to maintain efficiency with their outdated technology systems and infrastructure. They're dealing with the high costs and too much paper of manual processes. They have frequent off-contract and off-budget spend. All of these issues are very tactical driven, and they're things that can be reduced or eliminated when you have a more strategic tool in place like cloud-based eProcurement software. However, a lot of times these companies are so burdened under their tactical issues that it's really hard for them to see a brighter future and where they could be, because they are sort of drowning under paper, under high inefficiency processes, and things like that. I'm going to get into a little bit more how you can kind of solve these problems, but I want to see what Foy thinks about these pain points and if they correlate with what Paramount has seen among their customers.
Yes, thank you, Anna. Those results are very similar to what we see as we're talking to prospects as well as within our existing customer base. Obviously, in a manual procurement process, your staff spends a lot of time on tasks such as obtaining quotes, creating requisitions, routing those requisitions for approval, maintaining and monitoring vendor compliance, matching invoices to purchase orders as well as to the receiving documents. So essentially you're managing exceptions, you're entering invoices, and the general management and oversight take a good bit of time because of the lack of automated processes in place. And when you have a manual procurement process, oftentimes expenditures are out of policy and or over budget, because people are either bypassing the system that's there because it's not automated or not using it at all. And then obviously you don't have any view into the impact on the budget as those transactions are being entered or approved. With manual procurement, you've got limited insight into what is being spent, and there's no visibility across the departments. This obviously results in a very lengthy process from start to finish, from the time that the requisition is entered all the way through the invoice matching. And naturally, the longer it takes to perform each of these tasks, the more each purchase order or invoice costs the company. And traditionally, it's been difficult to estimate these indirect costs, but there are certainly tools that we'll look at later on that will provide, that will assist in being able to do that, as well as implementing your own automated procurement process to get out of the manual procurement that many organizations experience today.
Thanks, Foy. And along those same lines of implementation and preparing for software, this idea that companies are moving from tactical to strategic procurement, or the value of that move, this isn't something that PayStream is just putting out there. It's somewhat supported by our data, as we often ask companies what their goals are in different back office departments. And in this one specifically, the procurement process, when we asked companies where they wanted to see the greatest amount of improvement, their top goals are very strategic minded. As you can see, companies want to improve their cost control and their supplier negotiations. And this is especially strategic if a company has international locations, maybe an international supply chain that they must manage. They want to increase their visibility over spend, which helps with a lot of different things, including cash management, forecasting, contract creation and competitive contract negotiation. And it also helps to reduce maverick spend among many different purchasing teams or even non-procurement purchasers. They do want to see improvements in more tactical-minded processes like requisition and approval process. And they also want to improve the accuracy of their data, which goes a long way to reducing risk in their spend management and improving strategic spend optimization. The more information you have, the more accurate that information, the stronger your processes and your cash management. So I just want to make sure that everyone's aware this idea of tactical versus strategic procurement, it's on the minds of companies, even if they're not able to always execute on it. And we'll get into that a little bit more in the next few slides. But first, I want to take a break and go into our first poll question. Now, this first poll question is a repeat of the survey question that we addressed at the beginning of my part of this presentation. We want to kind of gauge where our audience is as far as tactical versus strategic procurement or fully manual to fully automated state. So what type of procurement automation tool do you use? Do you use a cloud-based eProcurement solution, a homegrown procurement management solution, a procurement tool that is part of your accounting system or ERP, or maybe you don't use any tool at all? I'll give you a few moments to answer this question. Thanks, everyone, for taking that poll question. It looks like a lot of you are kind of in the middle between fully tactical and fully strategic procurement, such as those using ERP-based or homegrown solutions. That's great. We're happy you're here, and we'll get a little bit more into sort of the transformation process between the two down the line. First, let's take a look at what our data shows are the main benefits from fully strategic environment. Now, this question was asked to companies who are using cloud-based e-procurement tools, so they're able to manage their procurement processes strategically and not tactically. And as you can see, the top benefit is sort of the removal of one of the most tactical challenges, which is that time to fill cycle. And the top benefit was a reduced time to fill cycle, life cycle time. The second was better visibility and transparency across procurement, which is a very strategic goal in itself, and that enables synchronization, it enables better cash management, better communication between teams, and also better spend analytics that can have a really long-lasting impact on a company's bottom line and even their future operations as they're able to manage their cash with more insight and more strategic goals. The third top benefit reported was improved control and security, which is often missing when you're dealing with highly manual or tactical procurement environments. When you're reducing security risks and you're improving your control over spend across all purchasers and departments, you're also able to focus on more strategic goals like optimizing your supplier base according to high-value suppliers, along with the vendor performance metrics that you gain with automation, as well as building more competitive contracts and things like that. So as you can see, automating your procurement process brings sort of both benefits, the tactical, the reduction of tactical challenges and the improvement of your ability to see into spend and control spend with that transparency. Overall, approaching procurement from a strategic and competitive standpoint. I'm going to let Foy tell us a little bit more about what sort of that automated environment looks like.
With an automated procurement process, you're allowing the procurement professional to be more productive and able to focus on strategic tasks. You're able to improve visibility into spending. You're going to gain company-wide insight into current and planned expenditures from a single source. You're going to increase your productivity so employees can spend more time on their strategic tasks and less on manual data entry and paper chasing. You're going to reduce that paperwork. Electronic procurement digitizes the purchasing process, reducing and even eliminating the need for paper documents. There's going to be faster transaction speeds, automated workflows, alerts, and reminders keep the processing moving, and you're able to identify any bottlenecks that are a part of the process. You're going to get bolstered buying power. By centralizing corporate purchasing, you're going to benefit from quantity discounts and better payment terms. And then you're going to get increased accuracy by eliminating manual touch points. You eliminate the opportunity for errors. Plus, rules within the application prevent most of the routine mistakes. And you're going to do that via catalogs, punch-out, approval workflows, reminders of those approvals that allow you to establish your policies as well as your budget control. When you add in 2- and 3-way matching, you get additional controls as a part of the receiving and invoice matching process. And then you're going to be able to have visibility across the organization at the fingertips of those users that need it to see where their transactions are, what has happened to them, what needs to happen to them, as they've gone through each step of that process in order to be able to optimize your spend management.
Thanks, Foy. And just to reiterate a little bit of what Foy was saying as far as the different components of an automated procurement state, This slide shows the results of a question when we asked companies which of the services offered by an eProcurement supplier network tool they found the most valuable. And to give you an example, that companies are really focusing on some of those more strategic module components. For example, the top was order management, which is sort of a tactical focus in that it removes a lot of the manual paperwork that comes with manual PO management, but also provides a lot more visibility into the process overall, and it helps companies to make sure they're managing that process optimally. It helps them to reduce time to fill cycles times and improve the overall procurement process. It brings companies a lot more visibility and a lot more data that they can use strategically later. The second most valuable aspect of sort of that eProcurement tool is the supplier self-service portal, which takes a huge tactical problem out of the procurement management process, which is sort of fielding supplier calls and responding to supplier inquiries, a lot of inquiries that are kind of low value and that could be solved with an automated solution very easily, as suppliers are just looking for things like status updates or information that may be lost on sort of paper-based, manual-driven procurement management. The third is a very strategic focused tool, the contract management aspect of an eProcurement tool. Not all eProcurement tools have full contract lifecycle management components, but a lot have integration capabilities so that you can connect with another contract management tool that you might be using, or they have sort of a flip to contract feature, as well as a budgeting tool that helps you sort of maintain your procurement budgeting against your contracts. And that's a very strategic-minded tool that can go a long way in helping you to sort of optimize your spend analytics data. So let's take a quick break here for the second poll question. For this poll question, we want to try to get a gauge on where our audience is in terms of automating procurement and moving to a more strategic environment. Paystream has found that even though there are a lot of benefits of procurement automation, companies still have hesitations and roadblocks on their journey to automating. Some of those are more cultural roadblocks, and some of them are financial-based roadblocks. Whatever the reason, there are ways to overcome those. But first, let's see where you all are at in terms of adoption. So what is your greatest barrier to procurement automation implementation in your company? It might be a lack of understanding of current solutions. Maybe you do not expect ROI from automation. Maybe your business process reengineering process would be too difficult. Maybe you can't gain executive sponsorship. Maybe you believe current processes are perfectly fine, or maybe you just don't have it in your budget. So I'm going to give you a few moments to make your selection. Okay, thanks everyone for doing that second poll question. You are well on your way to your CPE certificate, as that was your second of 2 required poll questions. So now you just need to make it to the 50-minute mark to get your CPE certificate. Now, it looks like a lot of you guys have responded with your main barriers that are similar to the data that we've seen over the past couple of years. And I appreciate you giving us that information, and I think we're going to address some of those barriers in this presentation today. But I wanted to bring that up because I think it's important that everybody sees sort of the most common reasons people aren't moving from tactical to strategic procurement, and also to see that these barriers are shifting a little bit, and that the need for more strategic procurement is outweighing sort of the resistance that often comes within companies. So this figure shows data from 2017, and in that survey, 30% of companies reported that current processes work is as their top barrier to adoption. Now, Paystream typically views current processes work as the least credible reason not to automate your back office process, because if you really take a look into your current state and you break down the process inefficiencies, if you put down the metrics as far as costs and time that you're losing with manual management, current processes are not working and they're doing no benefit to your company. We find that current processes work as more of a cultural mindset, a resistance, sort of a stubbornness to really changing what needs to be changed. And there are many other reasons that go into why people say current processes are working. Often it's a systemic issue. It comes from things like no executive sponsorship or lack of budget. And people will say current processes work even though they know there are other issues at heart. Now the next slide shows data from 2018. In this survey, the top barrier to adoption was no executive sponsorship rather than current processes are working. Current processes are working is still the second, which means it's still prominent among organizations. But it basically is showing that it's getting a little harder to pull off this sort of status quo, this reliance on your current processes and teams operating how they've always operated. In other words, the tactical procurement environment isn't really sustainable, and it's starting to show among North American organizations. No executive sponsorship in itself is also related to a lot of other problems, such as lack of budget, maybe a failure to really showcase the ROI that would come with automation, which is a big concern for those at the executive level, maybe a lack of understanding of current solutions. A lot of those problems, and ultimately the problem of no executive sponsorship, is really just a question of building the proper business case. And that's something we can get into a little bit later. But the main focus of this slide, I wanted to point out that current processes do not work. The tactical procurement state does not work for the company, and data is showing that we are moving beyond that and that companies as a whole are taking on a more strategic mindset. So we're going to get into an automated strategic procurement, say a little bit more in this next section. I know up until this point we've used sort of a lot of high-level summaries of what tactical and strategic procurement look like. So in this section we're going to actually apply an eProcurement tool to this idea of transforming your procurement process. And we'll show you the exact features and functionalities that eProcurement solutions offer that both eradicate tactical processes and enable strategy within procurement management. One of the best ways to showcase the value of software is to show exactly how much software saves your company as far as costs within your procurement process. So this data, it comes from our most recent procurement survey. And like I said earlier, PageStream likes to sort of build a scale across automation levels. And in the first slide of my presentation when I spoke about kind of the fully tactical to fully strategic and everyone in between, another way of looking at this is breaking companies into buckets of novice, mainstream, and innovator. We do this across many of our back office department research, such as invoice management or sourcing. The way we view a novice procurement department is a company that's using no procurement automation tool at all and has fully manual and therefore fully tactical procurement processes. And just as we would look at the cost per processing an invoice, we look at the cost per processing a purchase order. Along the lines of a novice, you're paying almost $90 just to process one purchase order if you have no procurement automation tool in place. The next step we view as mainstream, or somebody who has an ERP or homegrown solution in place, as the majority of companies were relying on those types of tools for their procurement process. So it's a very average status quo way to manage your procurement. Those companies are still paying $65 to process a single PO. And then finally we have the innovator, those who are processing their procurement using a cloud-based eProcurement software tool. They're only spending under $31 to process a PO. So if you look at that, and if you look at the actual costs of your sort of status quo, your current state, your tactical-driven procurement, you can cost your company as much as millions of dollars depending on your annual spend and how large your company is. And now I'm going to turn it over to Foy, and he's going to get you a little closer to kind of assessing how much your procurement process is costing and where you can go from there.
And in partnership with PayStream, we offer a calculator that's on our website. You can see the link there at the bottom to be able to get to that calculator. It's also very easy to find if you just go to ParamountWorkplace.com and then click on the calculator at the top of the page. And what we've done here is make it very easy to calculate the savings as a part of the purchasing process. So you can see we offer some simple choices to be able to determine what is your current level of purchasing automation. And then we filled in some blanks for you based upon industry averages. You can certainly change those if needed. The first two are salaries, so you could change those salaries if those different than what the industry average is as indicated there, as well as the number of approvers per purchase order. So either use the data that's there or put in your own information to be able to calculate. And then additionally you can put in how many purchasing agents you have, purchasing managers, what their average salary is, and then ultimately the monthly requisitions that you do. There's also an accounts payable section here. The accounts payable is also a very important department that can be integrated as a part of the overall process, and there's information that you can populate for those people as well as their salaries and the number of monthly invoices that you do. And once that information is populated, you're going to be able to see what the potential savings are with automation. So as you look there, you'll be able to get those details. Always can go back and make adjustments to the previous information that was entered to see what any differences may be, and then from there there's also additional documentation as well as information that you can download to be able to help you with a return on investment by engaging and implementing an automated procurement system.
Thanks, Foy. And I know you're going to tell us a little bit more about sort of automated procurement in a second, but I want to pause here just to make sure everyone knows that it's more than just plugging in any eProcurement tool and trying to improve processes. It's also making sure that you take the same strategic mindset that you hope to bring to your entire procurement process, and you take it as you evaluate solutions. So if you're taking your procurement process to a strategic level, you want to look for a procurement provider that can offer things like extensive functionality and robust engines that help with things like approval processes and sort of document workflows. You want agility and back-end architecture that works on many different platforms, that offers integration capabilities across many different ERPs in your existing systems. You want a flexible system that's very easy to use, that doesn't require a lot of training or onboarding across your busy procurement teams. And this is especially important if you've got a lot of non-procurement purchasers who will need login access and who have other jobs. You don't want them to have to learn a lot of new feature functionality and sort of system navigation. You want things like advanced OCR, which includes online and offline capture for your documents. This is really great if you have a lot of paper in your procurement process. You want things like B2B integration with industry standards, including things like punch-out catalogs, integration. You also want unlimited routing rules, and approval pathways to navigate many different business types, especially if you're in an industry with very widespread locations and a lot of different teams and companies requiring complex approval workflow. So I'm going to pass that over to Foy, who's an expert in strategic procure-to-pay, and let him dive into these sort of features a little bit more.
Your procurement department works hard to establish preferred supplier agreements, offering the best terms and pricing. But these can be tested when someone in the organization needs to buy something. Guided buying catalogs are an easy and effective way to direct users to the right items, the right policies, as well as your preferred suppliers. Guided buying catalogs empower users across the entire organization to shop for goods and create requisitions when and where it's convenient for them, without the need to search out the best supplier and pricing for each item. The use of catalogs also helps your procurement team be more efficient with their time. Rather than entering purchase orders, they can spend time developing supplier relationships, for example, to ensure the company is always getting the best pricing from the best vendor. The requisitions that are created as a part of the shopping process are automatically routed for approval, speeding the purchasing cycle and eliminating the manual touch points that frustrate stakeholders and compromise the efficiency and accuracy of those transactions. Guided buying catalogs enhance the overall user experience by speeding, simplifying, and automating routine purchase requests so buyers and procurement staff can get back to their jobs. And then when you extend those catalogs over the mobile application, the users can browse and shop those catalogs on their mobile devices anytime, anywhere, submit the requisition from the shopping cart on that mobile app, and then have that also go through the approval process. Another type of catalog that can be used is referred to as punch-out. That's the name given to the technical protocol that allows you to directly connect to suppliers' product catalogs from your organization's cloud procurement application. If your supplier supports punch-out, your company's shoppers can browse and shop in real time on the vendor's website from within your cloud procurement application. Upon checkout, just like in your own guided buying catalogs, your cloud procurement software creates a requisition ready for review and approval. The advantages for using punch-out are significant, both for procurement staff and for the employees that use it to shop. Since the shopping occurs in real time on the vendor site, pricing and quantities are always up to date. You don't have to maintain the information as you do with your own catalogs, and the requisitions are created automatically with no manual data entry. Shoppers gain a better experience as they are shopping on a familiar website. It's accessible from right inside the procurement solution. It adds up to more spend under your control, time savings throughout the cycle, as well as overall improved efficiency. And you've heard the adage that you can't manage what you can't measure. Approvals are a big part of the overall process. Certainly you want it to be simple and easy to be able to enter the transactions, but you also want very robust approvals to be able to manage those exceptions. So the saying holds true in the procurement department. Spending that breaks the rules by bypassing your requisition and purchase order system, often through unvetted suppliers, is referred to as maverick spending, and it can be quite costly. And maverick spending can grow because employees believe that the purchase is too small to matter. And obviously, if you have a lot of employees, that's going to certainly add up even if the purchases are very small. There's no formal process in place for smaller transactions, or the existing process is too cumbersome, and again, the employees attempt to bypass that process. Management focuses on large spending items and doesn't enforce the spending rules at the lower levels. So eProcurement solutions save money by keeping the requisition process and the associated approvals straightforward, sensible, and easy to use, so that the employees are more likely to follow the process, meaning you'll bring more spend under direct control where it is measurable and manageable. As a part of that process, you keep users up to date with email notifications. You allow alternate approvers to approve when somebody's out of the office or unavailable, as well as ad hoc approvals to add additional approvers to the process when needed. Reminders go out, alerts if you don't approve after a certain amount of time, bypassing levels of approval if you still don't approve after a certain period of time, all designed to keep the process moving and make it more efficient. You also have very flexible approval routing rules at the line level with unlimited levels of approval, unlimited approval paths to make sure that you are able to catch those exceptions, but then again, keep the approval process simple so that it's quick and easy for those users that are entering the request to have the items get processed through, but it's also very straightforward for the approvers to be able to do the approvals and keep them moving as well. And as an overall part of automating your procurement process, you also want to look at integrating or centralizing the procurement and AP processing across the organization to realize even more benefits. Three-way matching to avoid paying for items that are billed for suppliers but not yet received. Different user levels of security so that you can allow an individual user that made the request or actually received the items to do the receiving, and then have somebody else be able to do the invoice matching with approval workflows based upon any variances of the invoice from the initial purchase order. Visibility to be able to see those invoices across the departments so that accounts payable understands the original request, can view any quotes or attachments that are a part of that request, and then also be able to understand that the approvals did occur properly before that can then be paid, and then approve based upon any variances that are different, any exceptions that occur from what was originally purchased, and then the ability to always see an audit trail of what happened throughout the entire process. So as you're looking at an automated procurement solution, also keep in mind that accounts payable is a very important part of that, because the accounts payable is typically facing the vendor, and it's going to allow you to get the vendors paid quicker, which again will improve those supplier relationships. And then as an extension of that integration between the different departments, you also want to provide visibility across the organization as needed based upon the security to those transactions that are in the process. Make it very easy at a glance via a dashboard to see where those transactions are or what a user needs to do as a part of their day-to-day activities. Real-time information so that you can see items that are pending approval, items that have been disapproved, items that have been canceled that you need to be able to act on. Allow administrators or managers to see more detailed reports so that you can ultimately optimize the solution and make sure you're taking advantage of the process and that you're making sure that everything routes for approval properly, again, without making it too cumbersome or too long to be able to delay it. And then audit capabilities to be able to see any changes that were made during the process, to be able to see who approved it, when they approved it, and ultimately how long is it taking to approve, again, so that you can optimize that process. So offer those advanced reporting tools that make it easy for you to customize or configure your report so that you're able to see the information that you need to see. Again, totally controlled by security, so a user's only going to see the transactions that you're allowing them to be able to view. Use analytics so that it's very simple via graphical formats to get to the data initially and then allow you to drill down and see additional information as well as additional details there. The overall idea behind the visibility is to provide you with more controls, but again, also the opportunity to analyze your process. So even though you've implemented the process based upon your research and working with the procurement solution, now that you've got that in place, you're able to enhance that and make sure that you're using the most efficient and effective process for those transactions as they move through. And you're going to improve the procurement and financial management within the organization by giving this visibility to the ultimate process that you've put in place. And we've talked a lot about what you can do internally with your organization in order to improve your process and take advantage of an automated solution, but also involve your suppliers. Make them a part of the process. That's going to help you improve those relationships. Certainly by getting them paid faster, is going to make a difference. But if you involve them to be able to have a vendor portal so that they can enter their own invoices, that they can do some self-service and make any changes that need to be made to contacts or addresses, that's going to further enhance the process, make it more effective, more efficient, and you're allowing your procurement professionals to be able to interact with the vendors on a different basis and overall manage that relationship. So make it easy for the vendors to be able to understand purchase orders that have been entered and created from a requisition, make it easy for them to provide their invoices so that the invoices can be paid quicker, and give them that access easily, again, via vendor portals across multiple browsers, via the mobile devices, so that you can ultimately make sure that a part of your overall process is improving those supplier relationships by enabling them to be a part of it. So to summarize, strategic procurement leads to more competitive purchasing, optimized spend management, because now you're going to take your spend under control. You're going to make it easy for users to be able to enter their requests for the goods or services that they need in a familiar format by being able to shop guided buying catalogs or being able to use punch-out. So you're going to make it easier for them to adopt and not attempt to bypass the processes that you're putting in place. Because you're now going to be able to have the spending under more control, you're going to be able to have stronger supplier relationships because you're going to be able to negotiate with those suppliers based upon what you intend to spend with them to get better pricing. They're going to be able to get paid faster, so they're going to be happier as an overall part of the process. And you're going to lower your costs and directly improve the bottom line, because every dollar of savings that you do as a part of your spending or procurement goes directly to that bottom line. So that's why you see significant savings when you look at that calculator as well as the overall process. Your workers are going to be more productive because they're going to be able to focus on their jobs and their tasks rather than having to manually walk requisitions around for approval and keep an eye on them and make sure that they don't get lost or misplaced. And you're going to gain a better competitive advantage as an organization because you're going to be able to do better business because, again, you're able to focus on those things that are important to your business rather than chasing the paper around the organization for the purchases that you need to make. And as I mentioned before, Paramount Workplace does offer seamless out-of-the-box integration to many of the different financial and ERP solutions that are available. We also offer standalone capability where we can run the procurement solution independently of a financial and back-office system and then simply provide an output via a report or via a file in order to be able to populate any necessary systems that you have. But overall, we see a lot of benefits to the integration to the different systems that we work with, and if you don't see your system listed here, it's certainly one that we can talk more about in detail about what makes the most sense. We are a global organization, so we do offer multiple currencies as well as multiple languages, either for organizations that have remote offices or remote locations, or even ones that are headquartered in different areas of the world. It is a 100% web-based application accessible via your browsers, Safari, Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, as well as devices on your mobile for Apple and Android, designed to provide deep visibility anytime, anywhere, easily to any of the users that are a part of the process. And because of the different accesses that are provided, there's also multiple authentication modes that are available to make sure that it is secure, again, that you're only able to log in and get the information that you need to be able to see and look at as a part of your overall job. And here are those industries that I mentioned earlier on as a part of the presentation. Again, if you don't fit within one of these industries, it certainly does not mean that you're not able to take advantage of an automated e-procurement solution. These just happen to be industries where we've seen particular success, either with the number of customers or the usage of an automated procurement solution. Some of these are very natural as you look at them, nonprofits, utilities, state and local government, where you need to be able to have very tight and effective controls on your spending. You're getting the money, obviously, from a nonprofit, from grants or donations, so you're going to want to be able to report on where that was spent. You've got other industries here that are very important from a budgeting standpoint, so that you're able to compare the transactions to the budgets as they go through, have visibility from the time that the transaction is entered all the way through to the time that it becomes an actual against that budget. So again, these are some of the more popular industries as we've moved forward with our solutions, but certainly we can accommodate anyone that needs to be able to manage their spend.
All right, thank you, Foy, so much. That was a lot of really great material, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. Before we jump off, I have a few questions that I received during the event, and I thought that it'd be great if I give you a chance to address these for our audience. So
Absolutely.
I have one, and it's from Fred, and he says, my company already has an ERP procurement solution in place that's highly tailored to our business. What are the typical differences between cloud-based solutions and that? So what do you think, Foy?
Yeah, we find that to be a case a lot. I mean, certainly many of the solutions that we showed on the slide earlier do have their own requisition and or purchasing component to them. But what we find are major differences between a cloud-based procurement solution and what's inherent with the ERP are approvals. The approvals tend to be much more robust, unlimited levels of approval, unlimited approval paths, and then line-level approvals by pretty much any of the information that's a part of the request on a automated cloud-based procurement solution, whereas typically we see internally on the ERP solutions, you're much more limited. It's typically a company hierarchy, manager, managers, manager, managers, managers, manager, and it's more at a header level than at the line level. Also, another big part is catalogs. Catalogs are very big as a part of the adoption of the solution, the ease of use of the solution, and then also a certain level of control when you're using the catalogs. So whether they're guided buying catalogs that are developed internally or whether they're punch-out catalogs that you're going out to the vendor, those would be two major differences as well. The ability to use the catalogs is a critical part of a procurement solution, and that's not something that's typically available to that same extent within the back office or ERP procurement component.
Great, that makes sense. Thank you. Let's do another one. We have one from Jermaine. He says, have you seen popularity for procurement automation in industries like gaming and casinos? What do you think about that? Have you seen that, Foy?
Yeah, that's actually a really good one. Gaming and casinos is a popular area for us as well, in addition to those industries that I showed a minute ago. I mean, please remember that, we show the industries on the screen, but you're certainly not limited to those. Casinos and gaming are probably one that should be a part of that as well. And we've actually got a few success stories that we've done lately in that particular arena. So it's very popular for those types of organizations. They tend to be a little bit larger organizations as far as the number of users. They don't have to be, but that is what it tends to be. But mostly they tend to be a very disparate group of users. You've got the very straightforward line cook that needs only a very few items that they need to be able to request and very little information that they need to be able to know or enter on the requisition. But you've also got the higher procurement professionals within the organization that need a lot more detail, a lot more information, and a lot more visibility. So the fact that you can configure a automated procurement solution for those different types of users is really big in the casinos and the gaming. Also, we've heard there's an inventory component there as well. We didn't talk about inventory during this particular presentation, but inventory management is often a part of the procurement process, so that as you procure, you're not necessarily creating a purchase order, but you're releasing the item from inventory or transferring the item from one location to another. That is popular in the casino and gaming industry because they do maintain a lot of on-hand inventory. It's also popular in healthcare as well, where you can imagine there's a central supply area, and then you're moving it from floor to floor or different locations. So that would be another component. So yes, casinos and gaming are a very good fit for an e-procurement solution as well, and those are some of the reasons.
Great. Thank you. All right, we have time for one more quick one. This one is from Mary. She says, how long does it take to implement this software? And you definitely the expert on that one.
Yeah, no problem. So a lot of that is going to be dependent upon the size of the organization and what pieces or components that you're actually implementing. But the general answer is, I would say, 3 to 6 months. Certainly some of that is dependent upon the level of time and effort that you're able to input and you're able to provide. You saw a lot of the research and a lot of the comments that were made during this particular presentation. Planning and understanding your environment and understanding your approvals and routing is a huge part of the process. So you do want to make sure you get that right. So when I say 3 to 6 months, that's typically why it takes that amount of time. You obviously have the implementation of the software, but then you've also got the business process planning that's a part of it as well. We certainly have had organizations do it quicker than that time frame, depending upon the amount of effort that you're able to provide, as well as are all your users in the same location, or are they remote offices, remote locations? That can certainly make a difference on the rollout. But typically anticipate 3 to 6 months from the time that you begin the project.
Okay, great. Thank you, Foy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our time today. I want to thank Foy once again for giving us your expertise and knowledge on this. Thanks for joining us.
No, you're very welcome, and thank you for the time, and certainly be glad to answer any more questions that we didn't get to today or any questions that come up as people watch this presentation. Very simply, my email is foy, F-O-Y, @ParamountWorkplace.com. So that's the same as the website that we showed earlier for the calculator. So we'll be glad to answer any more questions about specific industries, specific functionality, or anything else that you'd like to know about automating your procurement process.
Great. Thank you, Foy. And thanks, everyone. I hope to see you again for our next presentation. Have a great afternoon.